refreshed and refilled. Y'all, it's time. What's up? What's up, Bryson? How you doing, Selena? Hey, Robin. Hey, Natasha. Hey, Sue. Veronica. We glad to have everybody who is here in the studio with us and out there in virtual world. We love to see it. It is Monday, y'all. You already know what time it is. You know what Mondays are about. Mondays are that restart to the start of your week, because technically, y'all, we started the week on Sunday. Now, y'all know that's technically, y'all call it the weekend, but on the calendar, it says the first day of the week. We are starting our Monday to start our week off, just refreshing ourselves, diving deep into soul care, because your self-care is important from a holistic standpoint. And if you're not taking care of your spirit or your soul, are you really taking care of yourself? So we're glad that you're here on Mondays. Every Monday, you can find us here every Monday at 5:30. Okay. Bronze Glow has been rocking for the last 2 years now, and we have learned so much in so little time, and there's so much more to go. And this is the time that we've been glowing through the word. And y'all, this has been unlike any other experience I've ever had, because every time that I've read through the Bible, I have only read it through either by myself or maybe collectively with my church, like we're all doing it, but not like actually reading it and unpacking every chapter together. Like this has never happened for me. And so if this is your first time, drop it in the chat, say this is my first time. Because we are all learning together, and we're learning so much, and we're really learning about God's faithfulness to us, the relationship that we can have, and what relationship can really look like, in that familiar relationship that is very different than what other people say. Go ahead, say it's your third. Yeah, I've read it several times through, but not with people intentionally discussing every chapter. So I love it. Yes. How many times? Drop it in the chat. Drop it in the chat. Yes. Set an alarm for it, baby. Make sure you hear every Monday at 5:30. So we're learning a lot. We've been growing a lot, and y'all, last week we gotta pick up from last week, because we didn't get we not even finished with last week, for real. We didn't even finish some of last week. I feel like there's some parts that we still didn't even get through, because you know it got deep. It got deep. Natasha here, she was here last week. It got deep.
Holy Spirit had his way, okay?
Holy Spirit,
Like,
he was like, excuse me, are you listening? This is for you. So we're going to get back into it. Quick recap for those of you who are just joining us for the first time. Going through the word, we've been reading all the way through the Bible, and we started with Genesis. We have read every day of the month, except for a few that we spent either resting because God told us to, or just diving deeper and unpacking because we needed to unpack some stuff. And the family line that we're talking about right now, we're talking about Abraham, his lineage, okay? His lineage, Abraham had Isaac, and then Isaac had these twins, Esau and Jacob. And when I say family feud, I mean wild and out of control, crazy, shady, shenanigans, foolery, all of it. It was all a part. Trifling. Just trife, okay? It was all a part of their family experience. And so we literally witnessed the birth of twins. And in the birth of these two twins, they were wrestling within the womb. And if you missed that part, please go back and watch, because Ashley went into great detail about what was literally physically transpiring in the womb, as well as the spiritual symbolism that was taking place there. Oh, that's good. I'm not gonna go for it. It's good. Go back and look. But we talked about that, and that struggle with them in the womb, and her finally seeking God to say, God, what's happening right now? What is happening and what's going on? and how do I move forward? How do I move through this? And then we saw the youngest one being promised by God that he was going to be above his brother, and that his brother was going to serve him, and all the things within that. And that confirmation that God gave happened without any additional consultation. And so later on, as they started growing up, families start acting the way families do when they think they know something. To start trying to manifest it for themselves, trying to make stuff come into fruition, start acting different because God done told you something. You start not asking how you supposed to act, but acting how you want to act because you think it's cool because God already told you, so you already know. I'm not gonna get on. I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna go. We're gonna get there. We gonna get there. We're going to get there. But I just want you to know that that's what we was talking about and what we were reading about, and seeing this relationship constantly of this lineage choosing to try to go about bringing forth a seed that God planted without going through the growth process that was supposed to happen, trying to circumvent the efforts that they needed to take, that God wanted them to go through, trying to go around God to get to the end result. So we saw that transpire, and of course, what happened? All kinds of foolery took place. The brothers started fighting. One of the brothers went ahead and swindled the other brother out of his birthright. But before he could really swindle him, the other one was already ready to give it up, because he was like, you know what? Take it. You can have it because I'm hungry. And I'm not willing to be in alignment. I just want what I want when I want it, how I want it. So I'm willing to do whatever for it. For that soup. Ashley talked about that too. Go
I'm
watch.
about to say that's a whole word right there, but okay, you're right.
Go watch the replay. Okay, go watch the replay. All right. And from that, there were consequences. So even after that, then there came the moment where the mother said, well, hey, look, son, you already got the birthright. You're also supposed to get the blessing. God already said you're going to be blessed. So let's go ahead and just make this shake. Let's go ahead and do this. Your daddy getting old. He can't see. You're going to put on this goat skin real quick, and you're going to go ahead and smell like him, smell some musty like him, like he been out in the field with the sheep. Go ahead and smell like him. Put on his dirty clothes so you can smell like him. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to trick your daddy because your daddy likes soup too. So we're going to go ahead and put a little goat, a little meat together, get him a little stew together. We're going to give it to him, and he going to think it's your brother, and he's going to give you the blessing. Foolish. And he said, what if that cost me? What if that cost me? What if that cost me? She said, I don't care. I'll carry the cost. And that's very important for today's lesson, because you need to understand that there are generational curses on our families because somebody decided that they was going to carry the cost. And we see that spiraling in this family because they decided it was worth the cost. So today we're going to see a little bit more of what's worth the cost. We'll get there. But these two brothers, that feud, that spiraled out of control, that caused one to want to kill the other. So Jacob, who had swindled Esau, had to go, stay at his uncle's house for a while, get out of Dodge, try to give some years to pass by. When I say years, I mean over 14. There was lots of years to pass by to try to allow that feud to subside, and it didn't right away. It did not subside right away. But we witnessed these brothers going through the consequences of not going through the process. And that led us to see Jacob and his brother restored before their father died, and yet see the things that they had to go through. Jacob trying to seek out his own relationship with God. What does that look like? Then we saw him, because he had these wives now, these two wives that he got swindled with, because I told you the family's full of shenanigans. So when he went to stay with his uncle played him. gave him one wife. He was supposed to have the other. Now he's married to two sisters. It wasn't even lawful at that time for them to have two wives. But now he got them. Now they bickering because he's showing love to one and not showing love to the other. And then one can have kids. Now the other one can't have kids. And they started, yeah, that's the one. Yep, had two wives because they switched them on the wedding day. Hit him with the ooh-wee, the ooh-wah. Got him. Okay. After that, those wives started going back and forth. After they couldn't have children anymore, they would go to a surrogate. Now my servant's gonna be your baby mama because I gotta have more kids on my side of the house than yours. Because I gotta have the wealth. I gotta have the inheritance. I gotta be better than the other. Right? So all of that was going on. Very grimy, super grimy, dirty, very dirty. All that was happening, okay? And they brought forth all of these kids. And when they finally had all of these children, they still weren't learning. So last week we watched where Jacob showed favoritism to one of his children, which I believe is one of the reasons why later on it says, fathers, very specifically to the fathers, do not provoke your children to wrath. He knew his sick kids was willing to go off for theirs. Two of his sons had already demolished an entire city and killed everybody up in there because they raped his sister. And he still showed favoritism anyway. And that made them mad. And then came the dreams. He showed favoritism to his son Joseph. He gave his son Joseph a coat of many colors. Joseph started having some dreams of God revealing to him that he was going to be elevated above his family and that he was going to be leading his family and that the stars and the sun and the moon was going to bow down to him, his star. They didn't like that either. They was real upset. So we pretty much got that far. That's pretty much as far as we got last. So we're gonna pray, and then we're going to jump into this because, baby, it's about to get good. Okay. So I'm gonna pray, and then we'll jump in. Father God, I just thank you that you provided an opportunity and a space for us to be able to connect across cities, across counties, across, churches and denominations and even religions, God. You just brought people together who love you, who want to be spiritual instead of religious, who want to be connected to God instead of just connected to tradition, Lord, who are willing to have authentic and real conversations about what you've said to us and how we can use that in our everyday walk, God. And I just ask that you help us because we are not perfect. We mess up. We say things that are wrong. We think things that are wrong. We most certainly think things that are fully out of pocket. We do things that go absolutely against what you told us to do, so we're rebelling. At the same time, we don't do things that we know we should be doing. And sometimes we just won't even seek. We choose to put ourselves and our thoughts, our expectations, our ways of doing things, our strategies above you. We tend to think that we're right, and we tend to try to be in control, God. And we ask you to forgive us for that, to help us to reset, to help us to turn away from those things and to stand in where you called us to, and to not bend to anything else, not our understanding, anybody else's understanding, but only to yours, God. I ask that you help us to learn more about you and utilize what we learn, that we will put it into action, that we will use it in our memory, that we'll use it in our thoughts, that we will not just be about it on Mondays or Sundays or Wednesdays or during prayer or during devotional or when we're present with other people, but even when we're by ourselves, God, that we will always keep in mind what you told us in your word and that they will order our steps, your words, God, because you told us that it's a light into our path and a lamp into our feet, God. So we thank you that you've given us the light. I pray that you'll help us to tap on the switch Let's turn it on, that we will tap into that power. Pray that you will illuminate for us whatever you see fit for us to walk away with today. That we will leave this world, or this space, not this world, but leave this space, willing to build your kingdom, to change this world. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, y'all. So we get into it. Got to jump on in. That's right, Bryson. We get into the part where Joseph got. Joseph, the son, he was told to go take some time to check on his brothers. He went out there and they was plotting and scheming on him. They said, who is this? And why does he think he's better than us? And why does he think he's special? And who told him he's on a pedestal? Who told him that he's somebody important? And he needs to be knocked down a couple notches. And we need to just go ahead and just let him have it because I'm sick of his stuff. And those brothers decided, let's kill him. Let's kill him and let's just be done with it. And obviously, it's not a good idea, right? That's your family. Your father values all of his children, especially this one, clearly, with his coat of many colors that nobody else got. You know, Joseph came from the wife that his father actually loved and had fallen in love with and had been in love with for 7 years when he got duped for the sister, and still worked an additional 7 years to be with that mother. So like there was a bond, a special bond there. Joseph was younger than these other brothers. He was 17 at the time, so he was just a teenager, right? So there was all kinds of things. Now, Joseph had been snitching. I'm not going to act like he hadn't. He had already told on them a couple times and said, they acting up out here, when they were out with the flock. So he had already there was already this, ooh, we just can't stand him. They hated him. The Bible said that they could not speak peaceably to them. They couldn't even be cordial. They couldn't even just have a conversation. They could not stand him. They could not stand him. They could not deal with him. So when he told them those dreams and all that, that just took it to the top. And they were jealous. But then add on the other layer that here comes the snitch that my daddy done sent to check on us and see what we was doing again. So they was not having it. So it was bad. They saw him. They said, let's kill him because here he come. They could see him down the way. And let's kill him, right? Let's push him into the well. Let's push him into the hole, put him, bury him, put him in the ditch. Let's just tell him, an animal killed him. And, let's see what happens to the dreamer. Jealousy took full control. But you know what? It's so funny because as much as I want to be a hater and be like, y'all ain't right. Y'all ain't right. It's me. It's me. It's me. It's me. It's me. I'm them. They're me. I can't tell you how many times I've had to catch myself on comparing myself. Like, even when it comes to things of God, I don't pray like that. So I probably shouldn't be the one volunteering for prayer, because after a couple minutes, I don't even know if I would know what to say. Or, she always gets called to do something. I want to be asked to do something too. That's me. It'd be me. She acting like everything is good, but I bet her life in behind the scenes ain't as great. I've done that. That's with me. And yeah, they were certainly provoked. I think the favoritism was enough to, take them over the edge a little bit, right? They already couldn't stand him. He's snitching, right? But if you physically see your sibling, I mean, y'all seen it. Y'all seen it. Y'all have seen it. You know what it looks like. You know what it looks like. We have been in those spaces. We have been in those places where, you know, well, you got something special that take you just over the edge, just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. And that's what happened. That took them over the edge. I'm telling you. Y'all saw that viral video on social media that people were talking about? That was like a spoof. It was like a skit, but everyone was having a conversation. Well, if the father brought McDonald's for one kid and didn't bring them for the other kids, then what about the other kids? Well, we see what would happen. We saw what happened, right? Right here, right now. And so that took place. And after it took place, of course, them having this conversation, somebody, Reuben, said, okay, maybe we shouldn't kill him. Maybe we should just, throw him in the pit, right? Don't kill him. Because Reuben was like, okay, I got to be responsible. At some point, I've got to hold up some level of responsibility. I've got to do something different. I've got to be the one to say, no, but I'm not going to tell them that. I'm just going to tell them, don't worry about it. And then I will just go ahead and come get him, sneak over, pull him out of the pit, and figure out the next steps when we cross that bridge. Of course, that doesn't work that way. The rest of the brothers outnumbered him. They wasn't gonna let that happen. And and they eventually did what he said, right? They didn't want to let that happen. They wanted to kill him. But he said, just put him in the pit. So they put him in the pit. They took off his jacket. They stripped him of it. They put him in the pit. There was no water in the well, so it was empty. They cast him down, so they might have threw him. It might have hurt. We don't know. But they put him in the pit. And they decided to go ahead and sit down and eat dinner. Like nothing happened. They was chilling. But then the Ishmaelites came. The Ishmaelites, for those of you who don't know who the Ishmaelites are, when we go back to Abraham, okay, remember Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, right? And these brothers. So go back to Abraham, the great granddaddy. When Abraham was told that God was giving him a promise to create this legacy and that his lineage was going to be God's people, Abraham and his wife, well, his wife laughed at God. Abraham and his wife decided they was going to try to figure out how to make this happen. How do we bring this seed to life without going through the process? So they decided that they was going to do this surrogate thing and have a servant have a baby with Abraham. So then Sarah could say, boom, okay, look, you have a son. See? That is exactly what they wasn't supposed to do. But because they did it, there was then division in the family, and the division between the two brothers, Isaac and Ishmael. So the servant had Ishmael. God said, that's not what I told you to do. That's not what I told you was going to happen. Like I said before, you're going to have a baby. You're going to have a seed. I'm going to bring it forth in you. So you need to wait for that to happen. God said, that's not what I planned. So he said it again. They had to wait. They had the baby. But when they had the baby and Sarah was finna have Isaac, she was looking over at the servant, Hagar, and the baby, Ishmael, and she had an attitude. And Hagar was looking at her like, and look at you. And I don't like you either. And that was a problem. So Sarah said, put him out. Kick him out. There's the door. And so Abraham's son Ishmael had to leave with his mom. Now, God took care of them. He came and rescued them before they died in the wilderness. He gave them what they needed. He promised them that they would also be a great nation coming through Ishmael, and that Ishmael was going to have this wonderful legacy as well that God was intentional about, but it wasn't the promise he initially promised to Abraham. That was coming through Isaac. So here we have the great grandkid, well, the great grandkids of Abraham. From Isaac's side, we have Joseph and his brothers. But we also have the great grandkids from Ishmael's side, a company of Ishmaelites who were coming from Gilead with their cameras and their spices and their balm and their myrrh. And they were going down to Egypt. And so Judah saw they were coming and said, hey, look, instead of us killing our brother, because I told you, they still thinking that we going to kill this man. We not trying to hear what Reuben talking about. We are going to kill him. We put him in the pit for now, but we're going to kill him eventually. So Judah said, instead of us killing him, because we don't get anything out of that, let's sell him so we can get some money. I mean, at the end of the day, he is our brother and our flesh. So the brothers listened. So the Midianite, again, hear the term Midianites, they were Ishmaelites. So Midianite traders, aka they cousins, distant cousins, by way of Ishmael, passed by. The brothers got Joseph out the pit. They sold him for 20 shekels of silver, and they took Joseph to Egypt. And if you was wondering how much 20 shekels of silver is, I just want you to know what it is. Okay. 20 shekels. Somebody laughing like I did ask myself that. 20 shekels of silver is about let's see. It's about 200, a little over $200. Maybe back in the day. I think now it's like $5. Hold on, we're gonna look it up. 20 shekels of silver worth now. Let's see. Oh, wow, that's really interesting. Okay, so what I'm looking at says that the 20 shekels of silver with inflation would become the 30 shekels of silver. And you know, Jesus was sold for 30 shekels of silver. So I think that's really interesting. Like, okay, I see what you're doing, God. So right now, 20 shekels of silver is now equivalent to $5. They sold that man for $5.89. Somebody in the audience, they raggedy. So they sold their brother for $5.89. Reuben was not there when this happened. The one who said, let's put him in the pit and I'll come rescue him later. He was not there when this happened. So he came back and was like, oh no, they gone. What happened to him? Right? And they told him, like, well, this is what happened. And Reuben was like, you know, I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to be held accountable. So what am I going to do? What's going to happen to me? And they was like, don't worry about it, bro. We just going to kill this animal right here. We're going to put the blood all over. We're going to make it look like a crime scene. We're going to put the blood all over his jacket. We're going to tear his jacket up a little bit and rip it up, make it look like an animal got a hold of him. We're just going to say like, oh, man, we sorry, bro. Sorry, Dad. We found this on the way home. You know, and that's exactly what they did. They did exactly that. And they said, we found this. It kind of looked like Joseph's, don't you think? Is that his or not? So they did that. Jacob was absolutely wrecked. I mean, devastated beyond devastated. Um, he was like, I'm gonna die. I'm so depressed. I'm so upset. This is gonna kill me. I'm not gonna live through this. I can't possibly survive this right now. This is it. So he put on, as the tradition, sackcloth on his waist and mourned for his son many days. And everybody tried to comfort him, but nobody could comfort him because he was so upset. He was so distraught. He was so, just completely wiped. Okay. And sackcloth, by the way, and ashes were used typically as a symbol of mourning, as a symbol of repentance. Um, it was, this, lowliness, this humility was a part of it. Sackcloth, if you're not aware of what that is, it's usually made of like goat's hair. It's really thick. It's really rough. It's really coarse. It's very uncomfortable. It was used as a sack typically. And uh, it's this symbolism of like utter ruin, right? Utter desolation. Um, I think particularly the fact that he thought his child was killed by a wild animal is interesting because then he put on this skin of the animal. And then putting ashes on their head was also a part of that tradition. And it goes back to kind of this from dust to dust kind of mentality. From dust you were made, so dust you will return, which is what God told us back in Genesis. Um, Again, a sign of just desolation, a sign of grief. And this is used several times after this throughout the Bible. Like you'll see this constantly happening when either people are in sin and need to repent, or when people have lost something that's, really important to them, or when they're grieving or mourning. But it's like putting yourself through additional suffering. Like, I am just going to allow myself to suffer at this time. It's a heart posture. It's about how you want to position yourself um, to demonstrate the brokenness that you're in, to demonstrate that space of where you are, to demonstrate that sorrow for where you are, and what you're experiencing. Um, and it's very interesting because I think it's a calling to us that's even in that, the humility, the humbling of yourself, to take off your clothes and put on something lowly that's used as a tool, that's not fine, that probably doesn't smell the greatest, it's super uncomfortable. Like, to get out of your comfortable, safe, um, lifted up position and to humble yourself in that way. I think there's so much in that. And I think about how God sees and hears and honors that broken and contrite spirit, right? And that's what that makes me think of. So I'm not going to dwell here in 37 that long, because we are going to get to 38 today, I believe, if God allows us to. But I think the other interesting part of this is that um, the Midianites sold him in Egypt to Potiphar. So Ishmael descendants, the cousins sold Joseph to Potiphar in Egypt. But keep that word Midianites for the future, because we're going to come back to that. We're going to see how God just he will take the brokenness and he will use it in a way that you would never even have known that it was broken to start with. Boy, let me tell you, that'll preach all by itself. Because, baby, if you knew who the Midianites were, you would be like, oh, God, I see what you did there. I see what you did there. So I'm going to hold that. I'm going to hold that. Wait till Exodus. Wait till we get to Exodus, to the next book. But God was certainly moving. So today we are moving into Genesis chapter 38. I'm going to share my screen instead of putting the words up here. because it's just going to be easier for me today. All right, here we go. So Genesis chapter 38. And for those of you who have children in the room, I just want to reiterate that this chapter has a lot of adult content. So move accordingly. Okay. So it came to pass at that time that Judah departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adullamite whose name was Hira. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he married her and went into her. So he conceived and bore a son. She conceived and bore a son, and he called his name She conceived again and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. And she conceived yet again and bore a son, and called his name Shelah. He was at Chezib when she bore him. Then Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord killed him. And Judah said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and marry her, and raise up an heir to your brother. But Onan knew that the heir would not be his. And it came to pass, when he went in to his brother's wife, that he emitted on the ground, lest he should give an heir to his brother. Triumph. And the thing which he did displeased the Lord. Therefore, he killed him also. I wish I could just stop here and we just not read for the rest of the day. Because what? Okay. Sorry. Okay. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow in your father's house till my son Shelah is grown. For he said, lest he also die like his brothers. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. Now, in the process of time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted and went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend Hira the Adullamite. And it was told Tamar, saying, look, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. So she took off her widow's garments, covered herself with a veil, and wrapped herself, and sat in an open place which was on the way to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah was grown. Hold on, y'all. I feel like this is a little small for y'all to see. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so y'all can see a little bit better. Is that good? So she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot because she had covered her face. Then he turned to her by the way and said, please, let me come in to you. For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. So she said, well, what will you give me that you may come in to me? And he said, I will send a young goat from the flock. So she said, will you give me a pledge till you send it? Then he said, what pledge shall I give you? So she said, your signet and cord, and your staff that is in your hand. Then he gave them to her, and went in to her, and she conceived by him. So she arose and went away, and laid aside her veil, and put on the garments of her widowhood. Then Judah sent the young goat by the hand of his friend the Adullamite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he did not find her. Then he asked the men of that place, saying, where is the harlot who was openly by the roadside? And they said, there was no harlot in this place. So he returned to Judah and said, I cannot find her. Also, the men of the place said there was no harlot in this place. Then Judah said, let her take them for herself, lest we be shamed. For I sent this young goat, and you have not found her. And it came to pass about 3 months after that Judah was told, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot. Furthermore, she is with child by harlotry. So Judah said, bring her out and let her be burned. When she was brought out, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man to whom these belong, I am with child. And she said, please determine whose these are, the signet and cord and staff. So Judah acknowledged them and said, she has been more righteous than I, because I did not give her to Shelah my son. And he never knew her again. Now it came to pass at the time for giving birth that, behold, twins were in the womb. And so it was when she was giving birth that the one put out his hand, and the midwife took a scarlet thread and bound it on his hand, saying, this one came out first. Then it happened, as he drew back his hand, that his brother came out unexpectedly. And she said, how did you break through? This breach be upon you. Therefore his name was called Perez. Afterward, his brother came out, who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and his name was called Zerah. Ooh! Yo! Okay. Y'all! 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 Y'all. This is deep, baby. Say pattern. Somebody say pattern. Come on. I say I need the workbook. Say I need the workbook. And it's so funny because Veronica is watching, and her last name is Perez. So we talking about your name, sis. We talking about your name. This is so good, y'all. It is good. It's trifling. It's extra trifling because, yes, she knew. So let's just get into it. And if you want to join the studio, feel free to say you want to join the studio. We would more than happily give you the link to get up in here and to have this conversation with us, because this is deep, and y'all know this is deep. Like, this is deep. So,
can you hear me, Taylor?
I can hear you, sis.
Okay, because my internet is acting all type of raggedy, but can we say pattern? How, you know, something that has always like did me with the word of God is how people who never met each other end up doing the very same thing. Like, if you can't say generational curse, I don't know what else that is. You feel what I'm saying? Like, the whole idea, or they literally do the exact same thing and don't know nothing about the fact that it was done before them. Like Isaac, when he lied about his wife because he thought they was gonna kill him, like his daddy did with his mama. You know what I'm saying? Like, how did you know? How did you know? Then the situation with Rebecca and the twins, and now here is Tamar, and she got her own set of twins, and it's just like, man, okay, God, you really do the pattern thing. You don't play with that. It's a real thing. It is a real thing. But the fact that Judah was trying to intentionally get over on Tamar, because he was like, you know what? I kind of feel like it's your fault you done killed my kids at this point.
Say it again.
like both of my sons have died on account of you, kinda, sorta. It's like he's like blaming her. And so I'm not about to give you my last baby. I want to keep him. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna send you away so that you can go and do your thing. And I'm gonna tell you I'm gonna do the right thing, but I have no plans on doing the right thing. But then it's just all the trifling. It's just all the I'm trying to get back to getting back, even with the second brother with Onan being like, you know what? Instead of me telling her or my father, I don't want to sleep with this woman because I want to have my own children, I want to have my own heirs. I'm gonna go ahead and sleep with her because I want to sleep with her, but I ain't gonna give her no babies. Like it's like, really? Is this is okay? Okay, all right, cool. So, and I would love to know. I love when the Bible leaves us in a cliffhanger, so to speak. I would love to know what did. Like, what did he do? That guy was like, nah, I'm done. Like, you get out of here. Like, am I the
Yes,
only one?
yes, I be wanting to know, sis. What did he do? Cause I need to know the specifics, so I don't do the same thing. Like, what was he doing? Like, how raggedy was he? Cause this other stuff is some raggedy stuff, and they didn't get killed right away. So I don't understand what he was doing. But whatever he was doing was the total fool. He was doing the plum fool. They was doing some foolery. He was doing the plum fool. Had to be doing the plum fool. What was you doing that the Lord said, you know what? You just need to come on up out of here. We don't need you to be doing you come on, because you doing the most. You doing the most. So that is that. Craziness, extra, ridiculousness, all the above, right? Craziness, extra, ridiculousness, all the above. But not I didn't say stupid and absurd. I didn't say that. I said craziness, extra, and all the above. It's different. It's different. So I appreciate what Robin just said. A cycle is repeated until it can be broken. Oh my goodness. That's so huge. A cycle is repeated until it can be broken. It's like, because we don't learn the first time or the second time or the third time. I be wondering, because my puppy, y'all, he be wearing me out. I done told you 50, 11 times to stop doing that. Why are you still doing that? And even when you get a whooping, I'll put you out, I'll put you in your pen and take away your stuff and put you in the muzzle. No matter what I do, you still doing it. Why aren't you learning from it? Oh my God. Imagine you're my puppy. I am the puppy. I am the puppy in the scenario. That is deep. Yes, it's deep. Get in here. Nesby, get in here. I sent you the link. Get in here. Join the studio, okay? Because child, it's a whole mess. It's a whole mess. So,
I can.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I can honestly say I have been the puppy.
I've been the puppy.
I have been the puppy where I'm like, I know this ain't working, but and by the grace of God, I can say that was seasons ago. But every once in a while, those puppy tendencies try to come back. You feel me?
Okay. Every once in a while, I find myself in the same place and be like, oh, I've been
Yeah.
here before.
This this. Oh,
Ooh,
okay.
get off my
I
toes,
ain't supposed
Robin.
to do this. So
Robin,
I
go ahead. Sorry, Natasha.
no. I look. I was reading what it said. That part. I just I want to not because I mentioned all the crazy and sometimes I get stuck there because to me the Bible is better than like a bestseller book. It's better than the days of our lives. It's better than like the Bible will give you some juice, okay? But we even see God's sovereignty and the whole plan, and
Yes.
how Judah lost his two sons,
Mm.
And Onan, and it was perceived to be by the hands of Tamar, or at least that's how Judah seemed to
Mhm.
take it.
Mhm.
But then God would bless Tamar to be able to not necessarily replace the two sons, but to give him two sons in addition to the two sons that he lost. It's
Yes.
like God is he was so intentional. Like, if things would have been done the way it was supposed to be done in the first place, right?
Mhm.
There may have been Tamar may have given twins to or even to Onan, but after the loss of and Onan, where Judah was holding tightly on to the last baby, Selah, and he's like, I don't really want to give him up because I don't want to give him up.
Mhm.
And then it's like God was like, you don't have to hold tightly on to him because I still got two more for you. Because ultimately, those children who should have been his grandchildren were his sons.
Yeah. I think
So,
it's so deep because when we just taking the moments, okay, of being killed, right? He was wicked. He was killed. He was acting up. He was choosing to walk in the path that he was walking in, and he had consequences to that, right? Um, and those consequences was him dying. From that moment, there was an opportunity for restoration. There was an opportunity for um for Tamar to have what she needed, because in that time, culturally, right, women didn't take care of themselves. They were taking care of the household, and the household was taken care of the man, right? And so if you didn't have a husband to take care of you and you were a widow, then your child was supposed to take care of you. But if you didn't have no children, then the next of kin was supposed to marry you and produce a child with you. Yeah, for that redemption. That's the redemption. It was the kinsman redeemer, is the name of the cousin or the brother or whoever the family member was that's next to kin, that's not already married, that can then take you, marry you, and have a child with you to leave legacy for that family lineage. And technically, if we were doing the last name thing, right? My last name is Curtis. Technically, right? It would be the last name would be given to that child of the father who had passed away, or of the husband that had passed away, right? So it wasn't considered incest at that time, right? It was more of a matter of establishing lineage and establishing security, right? Because mind you, this is not so far off from when there was only two people in the world. We still in the book of Genesis, right? So we're not so far removed from the flood still, as a matter of fact, right? When there was just 8 people in the world, right? So when the flood took place and Noah was there, the flood, Noah's Ark, the flood over the whole earth, and everybody got killed except for Noah and his family. Noah and his family had kids, and those kids had to be with other kids. With they had to marry and procreate within the family in order for the human species to continue. And back then, it wasn't malicious, it wasn't nasty, it wasn't like that back then. We are hundreds and hundreds of years after the fact, where the genes are now mutating, and you're finding people to have um, different um, impacts of mutated genes, or sometimes physical deformities and other abnormalities now, when we see people maliciously, um, intentionally dating and marrying and having children within their family. But that wasn't the case back then during those times. So it's a different time frame, it's a different lens, different perspective. Even, yeah, Abraham and Sarah were half brother, half sister, right? So um those things are very different then. So when Abraham was lying to all them people, like, King such and such, this is just my sister. No, that's not my girl, that's my sister. He was lying because it was his wife, but he was telling a half lie because it was his half sister. That's why he justified it. So when we think about the cultural impact here, at that time, women were perceived as the ones who could take care of the home and nurture within the home, and they weren't able to go out and get a job anywhere. That wasn't how it was. Women weren't off, and oftentimes women weren't taught the skill set because, of course, back then it wasn't like somebody could go get a 9 to 5 and you just fill out an application, you got a job. Like you had to be trained with the skill set to work on a farm, or train with the skill set to go take care of a flock, or train with the skill set to do some of these other things. And so women did not have that. And so if a woman was a widow, she had to either be taken care of by her children or be taken care of by the next of kin, the next man who could take care of her and her family. And so when her husband was killed by God the first time, yeah, and well, a lot of people couldn't read or write. It wasn't very common that everybody could read or write or, do those types of things, right? Again, this is way back in the day. So the methods of living did not require everybody to have the skill set to read or write. I mean, this is even before, we're still in Genesis. Like I keep saying that we're still in Genesis. So we don't even have church. We don't have church. We don't have a temple. We don't have a temple that we go to. We don't have people congregating to worship in the same way. We don't have rules of engagement around that, right? We have the very beginning, right? We know that God exists. We know who he is, and we sacrifice to him on the altars. We do that, but not in a very not in a way that is law, not in a way that has been written down, not in a way that has been passed on like that, but more so in a just within this family, just this family. This is the only family that does it. This is the only family that knows God like that. Not the whole family, just this family, right? So we're still in that space. We're still at the very beginning. So it's hard for us to conceptualize this outside of our norms and our lived reality because we live in the 21st century. We're in 2022. We don't know what life is like without a cell phone, much less without everybody reading and writing and all of those things. And so it's hard for us to put ourselves into that frame, so that you have to look at the history and the culture to really understand the experience that's taking place. And that's why it's so important that we're doing this. And so the kinsman redeemer would have been the next brother of age at that time, which was Onan. But Onan decided not to be obedient. He chose not to do not only what was appropriate from their cultural perspective, but his father told him to do it. And he still chose not to do it. Now, mind you, you just seen your brother get smited. Is that the word? What's the word? What is the past version of smite? Smitten?
I think it's smoked. He was smoted.
He was smited. The Lord just destroyed your brother. So you would think that there would be some level of reflection, obedience, changing of behavior, moving differently. So that makes me wonder and question, what was the relationship with God that these other children had, right? Judah clearly is aware of the Lord, right? And he's aware that, God is present. But is he passing on this awareness? Is not, I'm not so sure this has been passed on, and what I can very clear on is that there is no relationship, right? Even if there's an awareness that God exists, these sons of Judah did not have a relationship with God. And without that relationship, they just doing any old thing. And so Onan decides, well, you making me marry her, which he did. He married her, his brother's wife. Made me marry this girl that I don't want, that my brother already had. And if I have a kid with her, then I'm not going to have any lineage for myself. So I'm going to be selfish. And I'm not about to father nobody else's child. So I'm going to pull out. And that's
So
what he
can
did.
I?
Yes, please.
So to the question on relationship or acknowledgement, when I read in Genesis, the thing that sticks out to me is giving the information. So they all had acknowledgement of this promise. And even as we go into the later chapters and into Exodus and so on into the Old Testament, a lot of what is spoken of is the promise and not so much being taught the relationship, which is kind of why, and I feel like I'm jumping like way ahead, so I'm sorry, but which is kind of why when Jesus came and he was calling God Father and he was talking relationship, the Pharisees and the Sadducees who were learned or, educated in all things Jew, they were educated in the promise, they were educated in the Pentateuch, and they were educated in the books of David, and so they knew these things, but that what they focused on was what needs to be done to get to the promise. Kind of like what when you had did the recap, even before you began reading, and you had did the recap, and it was like all of these different situations were taking place that the people were trying to forego the process in order to get to the promise because that was the thing that was most important to them. It wasn't so much, except for Abraham, I believe. That's why Sarah had to introduce the idea of let's go ahead and get this girl pregnant so we can have this baby. And it wasn't Abraham who decided that because even for him, it was the relationship. For him, it was no, me and this guy, like we talk together, we walk together, we enjoy each other's company. Like I find me in his presence. But after him, we don't see that again really until Moses. And so that in between time, it was just kind of like, well, let me tell my kids, kind of like if you have a large family, I have a really big family on my father's side. Like it's stupid huge. It don't even make no sense. And I make jokes about my mom's side of the family on how they're from a really small town here in Ohio, and I'm almost positive they cousins. I don't know. I could be wrong. And I should probably not say that on Facebook because my nana's on Facebook. But anyways, I have a really large family on my father's side, and there are stories that we know about people we've never met. Like my great great grandmother, who I've never met her, but I could probably tell you things about her that I've heard because those are things that have passed throughout the generations. However, I don't have a direct relationship with her. I can't say I know, great grandma so and so did whatever, whatever. I can say, well, they said, and I heard like, yeah, Eric, we they be acting crazy, but they get that from grandpa such and such, like that type of thing. And even in this situation here with Judah, with his children, we don't hear about him talking to his children about God. We don't hear about him even talking to his wife, who wasn't part of his lineage. She wasn't one of the people who knew about. She was the outsider. So here she is. Here he is. They make children, and the children only hear of perceivably the promise. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, my great grandfather said that God told him that he was gonna have a nation that came, that is, we was gonna have more people than, and that's who we are. And so that type of information, as opposed to, you can know him like how my great grandfather knows him because I know him that way. I don't even think, even though, like you said, Judah had acknowledgement of who God was, he didn't know God in that intimate way, like how he knew his wife, or how he knew how they, he didn't know God that way, and so he couldn't pass on something he didn't know to pass on. Does that make sense?
It makes so much sense, and it's interesting because, again, like you say, it's this pattern, right? So we saw Abraham have that relationship, but Isaac didn't. He just had that acknowledgement, like what you're talking about, where he didn't have that firsthand experience. Thank you, Nesby. Didn't have that firsthand experience, right? He had that, here's the story God said, here's what God said, but he was little through all of this with his father, so he experienced that I almost got sacrificed because God told my dad to tie me up and put me on the altar, but then he didn't do it. So God saved us. He had that kind of experience, but what he didn't have was that relationship, right? But then Jacob, Isaac's son, he had relationship. It wasn't as tight as Abraham, but he had some level of relationship. God came to him in the dream. He dreamed of the ladder. Then he had the experience of literally physically being in presence with Jesus and wrestling with Jesus. He literally physically touched him, wrestled with him, and held on to him and said, "Bless me before I let you go." So he had that. But it's evident by what you're saying and what we're seeing with Judah that Judah did not have that relationship. That experience was not there. Or if he did have the relationship, it was not at all passed down to these children who were acting so ridiculous. So I think it's really important to consider that this is about people's choices in their behavior, right? Again, I'm going to put it back up because Robin said it, right? A cycle is repeated until it can be broken. And so there are folks who are choosing not to move. Now, I have to stop you there for a moment because I'm not sure that we know the experience of Shua, the daughter, right? I mean the wife. Shua the wife. But what we do know is that Tamar, I'm not sure that we know exactly where Tamar came from either. So I'm not sure if we have a clear understanding of where these women came from. So I'm not going to say or agree that the women are the ones starting the problems. Because what we do know for a fact is that the men have had direct relationship with God and have been given instruction by God, and these men are doing the opposite of what God told them to do. And we hear this argument all the way back to Eve, right? Is it the woman who's the problem starter, or is it the man who's the problem starter? And we say the same thing every time. They were both given instructions by God. Adam was giving them directly. So he literally heard God directly tell him, this is what you need to do. And we know that that information was passed to Eve. We didn't see God say it directly to Eve. So we don't know if God ever had that conversation directly with her. Same thing. Eve was standing there having a conversation with the serpent, and they ate the fruit. But Adam was standing right there with her. So he wasn't. She didn't go get him. He was there. So he chose to do the wrong thing too. So I think what we see is this pattern um of of all of these entities missing that foundation. Whether it's the woman, whether it's the man, they're denying relationship. And even if the woman is aware, she's still not listening. If the man is aware he's still not listening, it's still the same thing across the board, no matter who it was. They all keep denying relationship, even though God has given them instruction or given them clarity. So it's patterns of disobedience. Thank you. Patterns of disobedience that we're seeing here. And so after looking at this particular pattern of disobedience, we saw Onan got killed. You chose not to get her pregnant. You chose not to do that. And so God said, that's not what I told you to do. And he killed him also. And then Judah decided, let me get rid of this girl because she's going to kill all my sons. And I think, again, goes back to the lack of relationship, because if you had a relationship, you would notice she didn't kill the son. God killed the son because they were disobedient. So instead of learning the lesson from your sons, both of your sons being disobedient, you decided to be disobedient as well and said, I ain't going to give her my last son. And those patterns of disobedience are the theme that we see here. So Judah's wife dies. He lonely. He out here by himself in these streets. He decides, when he decides, first of all, he telling everybody his business, where he going and when he going. And when he went, she decided that she gonna get hers. She said, if you not gonna do right by me, I'm gonna make sure you do right by me. Now, if you notice, we've seen this pattern as well. We just read this a few chapters back when Lot's daughters decided that because their husbands were dead, killed by God in Sodom and Gomorrah, and because they didn't have nobody to take care of them and their daddy is getting older, they decided to get him drunk, to sleep with their daddy, and to have a baby. Very disobedient, completely wrong. That would be where we say this is incest, right? Because it's not a kinsman redeemer. This is y'all plotting and scheming on y'all daddy. Very disobedient. So we've seen this before. So that should be enough to tell you that if this is the pattern that women go to, that they will go to this great length to get pregnant by somebody, anybody, just to survive, then that lets you know how widows were treated then and what happened to a woman who had no man in her life. It meant she was homeless, she was kicked to the curb, she was treated like, survival, bare minimum. There was no support for a woman without a man in that world, which is why they were so desperate to be that nasty, because ew, right? So Tamar took off her rightful garments as a widow, and she went and put on her other little outfit. You know the one that lets everybody know that it's a hot girl summer and she here for the streets. She put that on. And then she went very strategically and placed herself in strategy. And when she placed herself in strategy, she knew that she was going with the intention to sleep with her father-in-law. That was her intention. Somebody had told her, your father-in-law gonna be traveling down the street over there. She said, oh, where? Okay, let me go get myself together. I'm gonna go sit over there and wait for him. That was very intentional, because she recognized that he did not do right by her. You did not give me the son that I was supposed to be with. You did not give me the person who was supposed to take care of me. You sent me back to my daddy's house. Now I'm an inconvenience over there because I don't bring nothing to the table, they said. They feel some type of way, they said. Why are you here back in my house, they said. Didn't I send you off to get married, they said. My father is taking on an extra mouth to feed, an extra burden that is not supposed to be in his house. And my father is getting old. He can't take care of me. Somebody got to take care of me. My daddy finna die. Where am I going to go? She said. So she put on her hot girl summer outfit and she went to strategically put herself right where he would find her. And he thought this is a street girl, streetwalker, a hooker. She's a prostitute, a hoe. Because she covered her face up like the hoes do. So I think that means that I can go be with her. So let me go slide up and tell her real quick, like, please. And then he said, please let me get some. He said, please let me touch you. That's not what he said. He said, please let me have sex with you. He didn't even say, as a matter of fact, like, really think about what he said. It's real messed up. He didn't say, let me know you. You know, the Bible uses these different words, right? Let me know you, right? He didn't say, come, hey, can I get to know you? He said, please let me come into you. And she said, how much? And he hit her with the quickness. One young goat. And she said, well, I need some type of collateral. I need your license, something. Give me something. I got to hold something. Your wallet, your credit card, you got to put a down payment some kind of way. And he gave them to her, had sex with her on somewhere off the side of the road, somewhere. That's right. He wasn't trying to get intimate with her. He just wanted a release. And yes, she catfished him real quick. And he didn't even call her Kelly Price. She just did it. And then she got pregnant. She knew she was going to get pregnant when she did it. That was the whole point. And he might have thought she was a temple prostitute. Very possible. I'm not sure what temples existed at that time. Because at this time, God's temple had not been established. So there was no temple gathering in the form of what we think of when we talk about Jewish temple and God's people and the Israelites and the temple and all that stuff. That had not been established just yet. But it's very possible that there were other temples to other gods that existed where there were temple prostitutes. And historically, throughout the Bible, we see many times where there were temples that were designated for other gods, where individuals would be at the temple. It was like the what is the nice word? A brothel. There were there were places that were set up where people would go to worship their God and also have sex. And it's not very far off when you start thinking about other mythology of other gods. You hear the god of love, the god of sex. You know, you hear the sex goddess. You hear these things, right? You hear these things in other belief systems. When you think about Easter, Ishtar, right? Ishtar, about fertility and sexual relations. And I don't know how we got Easter and Ishtar on Resurrection Day. That's another day. That's another conversation. It's very cringy, but that is the reality of what we've seen historically in some of these spaces. So when you think about perversion of worship, right? Very much so a practice of perversion of worship. And so Judah sent his people over to say, like, okay, where's she at? We got her payment together. And they said, who? What? We don't know who you're talking about. She ain't over here. There's no prostitute that lives over here or sets up over here. And Judah, he definitely panicked a little bit. He panicked a little bit. He was like, I can't find her. Let her keep my wallet, because we don't want nobody to find out that, I didn't keep my promise. Because I tried to give her the goat, but we can't find her. So, And then you see how quickly Because he ain't had no business sleeping with nobody on the side of the road. He ain't had no business with being with nobody else. If he wanted to be with somebody else, he could have got married. Marry somebody else. But you just out here with a random? You ain't supposed to be doing that. You know you ain't supposed to be doing that. But you're not at home. You out of town. See, that's the thing. He was out of town. He thought it was cool because don't nobody know me. I can do what I want. What did Robin say? I'm not gonna stop until I get tired of doing what I'm doing or until it stops benefiting me. I don't have to worry about this. Don't nobody know me over here. I can get away with it over here. Nobody can see me. Nobody's gonna go run back and tell it. It's a secret. There's no camera phone. Nobody took a picture of me. They didn't see me going in there. I'm not gonna be in the tabloids. It's fine, right? So when he found out that Tamar was pregnant, burn her at the stake. Put her down. Kill her. Ooh, say that's the first sneaky link. That's the first sneaky link. And as soon as she turned up pregnant, he talking about kill her. Kill her. Everybody bring her out and burn her. Because how dare she play the harlot? How dare she get pregnant being a hoe? And of course, that she knew that was going to happen. She knew he wasn't going to acknowledge that he was already wrong because he had already been disobedient. He already didn't give her the child he was supposed to give her to marry. He already was disobedient. He was already blaming her for what God had done because he couldn't get over the fact that his children were disrespectful. He already wasn't accepting the fact that he didn't impart knowledge to have relationship with his kids, to have relationship with God. He never imparted that to them. So he, at this point, he is above reproach. He is not the one who's done anything wrong. It is all her fault, and she the bad guy. And how dare she do this to my sons? And how dare she get both of my kids killed? And then on top of that, she gonna get out here and get pregnant? Oh, I'm sick of her. Let her have it. And she said, okay, but before you kill me, and before you kill whomever else got me pregnant, I just want you to take this stuff that he gave me and you find the guy who got me pregnant. And she handed him his credit card and he said, ooh, that's my name. Ooh. And as much as I want to be like, Judah, you ain't right. You so raggedy. I'll be like, ooh, that's me. How many times have you been in a position where you think everybody else is the problem and everybody else is acting up and they ain't doing what they're supposed to be doing, and how dare you, and you need to get yourself together, and I wish they would get together. And you know what? I'm not even gonna talk to them about it because I can't trust what they got to say because they need to get themselves together. So they ain't got no business giving me no advice. Meanwhile, it's you. It's me. I'm talking about myself, so that's probably you too, but I ain't gonna call you out. You call yourself out. It's me. Ooh, me? Yeah, it's me. It's real. That's real. It has been us. We have been in these places. And he had to stop and humble himself and be like, you know what? She's been more righteous than me because I didn't do what I was supposed to do. And sometimes we be so busy looking at other people who we think are doing something wrong that we do not stop to say, am I doing what I'm supposed to do? We're not going to revisit last week, but I already told you God been knocking me aside the head. Blue, are we doing what we're supposed to do? A lot of times we're not. And so after that, of course, she gave birth. But here's where the restoration and the redemption is. God allowed her to have twins, not just one child, two. And not only did she have twins, but she had twin boys, both of who would not only take care of her and be able to take care of her, which is why she did all of this to start with, which redeems her from not having anybody to take care of her the way that she should have if Judah would have done what he was supposed to do. But God also did something with the lineage of those children. And it's very interesting that one of them stuck his hand out first and then got the red cord tied around it, and then he pulled his hand back, and then the other baby came out. So the baby that came out, his name was Perez, and the word Perez literally means breaking forth. And these are her sons. These are her sons. Um, these are her sons, and technically they're also, unfortunately, her brother-in-laws. But Perez means breaking out or breaking forth, which is so on time and so crazy, because in the gathering space, those of you who are in the gathering space, we have been watching the rewind of the sermon Breaking Forth. And in that space, we've been talking about the need to consult with God for him to give you the strategy, even after he's already given you the confirmation of whatever he has promised you. And when we talk about Joseph, which y'all like, how we get back to Joseph. Joseph is the brother. We stopped Joseph to interrupt these messages to talk about Judah a little bit to understand more about this. But when we're talking about Joseph, very interesting, because Joseph was given dreams. He was given confirmation of what was going to happen. And there was a process that he had to go through before God confirmed it. And he had to learn how to go through consultation with God before that. It's consultation, then confirmation, in that order. That's what we've been talking about in the gathering space, talking about breaking forth, talking about emergence. And when we talk about breaking forth, and when we talk about plants, which we've been talking about in Bronze Glow for the past couple of weeks, Ashley has been illuminating us that the seed has to be broken before the plant can come forth. The ground has to be broken up before the seed can lay root. And there is a process to God breaking things up within you before he ushers you through it. There is a reason why he talks about us being refined in fire, and that we go through that process of being broken down. When gold is refined in fire, it's literally melted. It's broken down to its most liquid state, to its earliest state that it can be broken down into. And once it's broken down that far, then the impurities can be removed. And then you can put it back into a mold, and it can be whatever shape you want it to be. But it has to be broken down. The impurities have to be removed, and then you have to move forward. There is no precept upon precept without the promise. And the thing that you're resisting could very well be the breaking that has to take forth in order for you to break through, for you to emerge forward, for you to break forth. And so this is so interesting because it's all in alignment, all across the board. And so Perez means breaking forth. And so his name, it became that symbol. And when you think about Judah and Judah's lineage and the ancestral lineage, God is so good. This is where the redemption comes in, because Perez becomes a part of that redemption lineage. Perez becomes an ancestor of King David, who becomes an ancestor of Jesus. And so God gave us a glimpse of redemption and restoration after brokenness, after abandonment, after being destroyed, because he also destroyed her character when he went around telling everybody she's a harlot and she's pregnant out here and she's doing this and that and burn her at the stake, right? God brought redemption through her line, through Perez. And Zerah, the other child, also was utilized very intentionally as well. And he is connected to royal family as well. Yes, thank you. It has to be taken through the heat sometimes. Sometimes we have to be taken through the heat. The seed has to die for us to start to be able to grow. The growth process comes after the death of the seed. That in itself will preach all day long. It will. That by its lonesome can preach all day long. And it's also interesting when you follow these twins in their lineage, you see the lineage of Perez. It goes hold on, I just lost my place. I'm looking at the lineage of Zerah. The lineage of Perez goes to Jesus, which is awesome. The lineage of um, Perez are also recognized when we talk about the captivity in Babylon. We talk about Judah as a nation, because Judah, the line of Judah, the tribes of Israel, Judah and Israel become kind of coexisting parts of the nation. Sometimes it's the nation together. Sometimes they were separated and had different kings. But we see Ezra, um, during the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, Zerubbabel was a leader, and he's also a descendant of Perez. And then with Zerah, his family lineage um, is included in the group that goes to Egypt later. We'll see this with Joseph, and Joseph brings people to Egypt. And then also we see his lineage then move towards Europe. And so they're mentioned oftentimes about being connected in Britain and Ireland, and becoming a royal family in Europe. And this is, of course, after the Bible times. And so it's very, very interesting how we see that. So, yes, we have to say it again, Nesby. We have to die to our flesh in order for us to grow in God. That is the moral of the story, y'all. That is it in a nutshell. I mean, it truly is the clarity that we need and the information that we need, because what we recognize is that when we die to ourselves, no matter what we've been through, no matter how we've been treated, no matter what we've done, no matter how we've rebelled, no matter how we've acted a fool just like the rest of them, God can still bring redemption and restoration. And he can do it through an imperfect situation. He can do it through imperfect people. He can do it through you, and he can do it through me. And he does it every time we choose to break forth and to connect in relationship with him. And so at this time, I will invite prayer requests. If you have a prayer request, share your prayer request. And if anybody in the studio or in the comment section want to add any of their additional thoughts, final thoughts before we close out, feel free to. But because, honey, we is at an hour and 37 minutes. I ain't even know.
I just want to say, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is interesting and crazy because it's like when you bring in the Bible to life, you make it relatable and you can see yourself in the characters. You know what I mean? Which
Mm-hmm.
is what I like about it. But at the same time, she knew, like you knew that was, you knew that was your father-in-law, and you still did it, bro. Like,
Girl, that's a girl with the D.
bro,
That's
like
one of them.
yeah, and that's like Literally, that's something I didn't know. Honestly, I have been learning a lot, and it's like loving hip hop Atlanta.
It is. That's why I try to tell y'all. Y'all think I be playing when I come in at the beginning and say, "Welcome back to Love and Hip Hop, the Gospel Edition." Where we left off on Gospel Love and Hip Hop. Y'all be thinking I'm joking. I'm so serious. There is more tea in the Book of Genesis than any combination of any reality show that combined. I'm telling you, there's more tea in it than everywhere else. But not only is it the tea and the shenanigans, but it's a reflection. It is a reflection because you see yourself in the mess and be like, "Ooh, do I look like that? Is that what I look like to you? I'm the puppy. Good grief, it's me. I'm Belle. I'm the one. I'm the howler, and I keep doing it over and over and over again. I keep telling you stop. Keep telling you stop. You keep doing it. Stop. It's me."
It's crazy because even in their disobedience, to think about like our daily lives, we are very disobedient too, and we can't be. I feel like I can't look at them and be like, "Oh, y'all was just dead wrong." Even though reading it, you like, y'all was just dead wrong," but it's still the disobedience for me. Like we do it daily, and sometimes knowingly and unknowingly. So you gotta ask God for His protection from dangers seen and unseen.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hey, it took till just right now for me to understand what that meant.
Ooh, it's
Like
good.
I was
I
right
mean,
now years old.
right now, years old,
I
danger
was right
seen and
now years old.
unseen. You don't even realize what's happening because you can't even see yourself sometimes.
Hmm.
It's so easy to see it in other people. I every other time that I read the Bible, I'll be like, ooh, you ain't right. Ooh, you raggedy. And then be like, ugh, that's us.
It's
And
crazy
so,
because even in just that statement, you notice how you was pointing like, "Oh, you reckon you was pointing right?" And it's crazy because when you point them same fingers, it be you too. It be just as much you as it is them. So it just, man, listen,
look, and
bombs.
sometimes it's more you than it is them.
Exactly. Exactly. This has definitely been a good learning experience for me.
I'm so glad you was with us today, as always, and with everybody who joins in and comes. Again, we're here every Monday at 5:30. This is the time to come in and to really tap in and to build and to learn together. And it's powerful every time because as everybody shares their thoughts and their understanding of what they're taking away from it, we all learn from each other. And there is nobody who's arrived. So we will constantly always be in a learning state, always growing, always learning, and always emerging, always breaking forth. If you notice, seeds don't just we don't want suicide seeds. If you don't know what that is the seeds that your companies like Monsanto and the other 10 companies that control all the food in the world, they take the seeds, they mutate them, and then they make them so that they do not reproduce, so that your food doesn't keep reproducing naturally, so that the farmers have to go buy seed from the same people every time to be able to have a harvest this season. And so those suicide seeds die. God is not planting us with suicide seeds. We are forever transitioning and we can reproduce and we can continue to grow and continue to shed and then continue evolving and continue to grow and continue to shed. And that is something that not only goes for us, but it spreads to everybody that you touch, everybody that you invite into the space, everybody that gets a chance to be a part of that relationship with God. And so if you don't have a relationship with God, please talk to us. We will help you connect in. It's very simple. You just gotta talk to him. You just gotta talk to him. Talk to him. Tell him you ain't right because he already knows. But you gotta say it. You gotta acknowledge it. Okay. Acknowledge that you're not right and tell him that you want a relationship with him. Tell him that you're willing to go through the fire. That you're willing to surrender to control. That you're willing to allow him to tell you to stop doing it your way. That you're willing to do it his way because he has grace for you specifically. He had God, his son, manifest in flesh, step away from his godly nature, meaning that he did not strike folks down when they smacked him, or didn't hop down off the cross when he could, or didn't speak and have everybody fall to the ground every time they looked at him sideways, but instead he went through all the pain, he went through all of the sacrifice, and he died very intentionally in order to surrender himself in your place so that when he got back up, you could be redeemed. The same way that the kinsman redeemer was supposed to have a child in your place for the person who died, so that the person who was widowed could be taken care of. God already sacrificed so that you could be taken care of spiritually for the rest of your life, and physically and psychologically and emotionally and every other way. And it is necessary for you to have a relationship for you to benefit from that. And you will not have that grace. You will not have that mercy. You will not have that experience unless you have relationship. So I encourage you to be in relationship with God. It really is the aha moment when you realize your battle, and correlated with certain stories in the Bible is like being on a stage naked. We are all on stage naked at this point, sis, and it is okay because God has the covering for us. We don't have to try to figure it out. We ain't got to try to put no outfit together or put fig leaves on us. He's got it. He's already got the coverings that we need. He already got us covered. So I encourage you to remain in that covering, to lean into that relationship, and lean into that covering as you go forth throughout the week. I want to remind you that you don't have to stop here. Today is not the only day that you can gather together. Every Monday, every Tuesday, every Thursday, and every Friday, we have morning prayer with the gathering space at 5 a.m. every Monday, every Tuesday, every Thursday, every Friday. I'm telling you that if you need to be surrounded, you need to be a part of the gathering space, because there are daily devotionals every single day where somebody's going live to do this exact same thing, shorter, but do it every single day. Every day there's access to the prayer group where you can be a part of prayer, where you can be surrounded and lifted up, where you can hear encouragement from other people. If maybe you're at home, maybe you're isolated, maybe you're not in a physical fellowship somewhere and you need to be surrounded by people of God, go to the gathering space. I kid you not. It is the place that you want to be, because every time I am in the gathering space, I am sharpened. I am around folks that cause me to grow in my spirit, and to lean into God a little bit more or a little bit differently every time. And then on Wednesdays, please, please, please come and join Calvary Grace Brethren Church of Dayton. We are having a Bible study every Wednesday at 7, and y'all, we are taking on the book of Revelation, and it is going to get deeper, because the book of Revelation is about the things that are yet to come. See, we've been used to talking about and reading about the things that have already taken place and applying them to our lives now, and but wait till you get to understand what God is doing in the future and what is going to happen here on this earth. Y'all, it's deep, and I'm telling you, you do not want to miss it. So every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, if you join us, our Bronze Glow, if you follow our page on Bronze Glow or follow our Calvary Grace Brethren Church of Dayton page here on Facebook, you can access the Zoom link every week. We post it on our walls. If you're friends with me on Facebook, I also post it on my page. So please make sure you get that. If you need it, just message us and say, I want to come to the Revelation study, and I'll make sure to get you incorporated. There is a book that we're using, so please let us know if you're coming. If you commit to being there for the entire study, we can get you the book as well. If you commit to being there the entire study, or you can purchase the book on your own and tap in when you see fit or when you're available to. And we also have church every Sunday here in the Dayton area at 3243 North Main Street. So if you're in the Dayton area and you want to fellowship in person and be with people and be with the body of believers, come to Calvary Grace Brethren Church every Sunday. And then again, as you know, every Monday you can holler at your girl at 5:30 with Bronze Glow Soul Care, and we will continue to glow through the word. Next week, we will be on Genesis chapter 39, where we will finally see what happens with our boy Joseph. So I'm going to go ahead and say a word of prayer. and then I'm going to release you all and catch up with you in the gathering space later on this week. All right. Heavenly Father God, I just thank you for this time today. Thank you for allowing us to spend this time in your word, to dive deeper into who you are, Lord, to spend time with you, to recognize the intention that you have in our lives. And even when we think that we're broken or that we think that we're in the midst of some mess, Lord, that you can still redeem us, Lord, and even use us, God, and be glorified through whatever you've allowed us to go through, Lord, and that you can still fix the things that we think are too broken to be fixed, God. I ask that you help us to develop relationship with you, that everyone who is listening in, Lord, who is tuned in, who's watching the replay, Lord, those who are engaged in that, who hit hashtag replay, Lord, that those here present currently and those who tuned in when they were able to, Lord, will be able to develop a relationship with you that is genuine and authentic, Lord, that it won't be a performance, Lord, it won't be to check a box, God, but that they will truly build a relationship with you where they can have intimacy with you, to know who you are and let you be a part of them, that they will be vulnerable and let their guards down and allow you to be in control of their lives, that they will relinquish that control, Lord, that it won't be the unsurrendered yes, Lord, but that it will be unreserved, God, that we will say that we really want you, Lord, more of you in every way, shape, in every way, in every shape, Lord, that we are willing to put away what other people think and what other people tell us and how other people want us to show up, and that we will show up truly in who you have called us to be, God, that we will walk according to your purpose, Lord, and that you will bless us and work things out to our good in that practice, God. I thank you again for your sovereignty, for your grace, for your mercy, for you seeing us even when we can't see ourselves. I ask that you move on everyone who has a need, God, that you deliver them, that you provide for them, and that you move in the areas that they need support, God, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, and in every other way. We ask these things in the name of Jesus, God. We thank you, Holy Spirit, for dwelling within us and guiding us and being that light that we can tap into anytime we choose to switch it on, Lord. And I ask you, Lord, all these things in the name of the Father as well. Amen. Y'all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you later on Brownsville.